world surrounded by franchises, reboots, and shared universes. An elite team of podcasters will risk body and soul to investigate the depths of intellectual properties, one multiverse, subgenre, and trend at a time. Who are we? We're the IP Squad. Welcome to Season 2 of the IP Squad, our continuing investigations into subgenres, spin-offs, franchises, and shared universes. I'm John Campbell, but with me for this investigation, a new team. That's right, so much going on. I had to bring in a pair of partners for this. And in fact, I would say they're sort of a mismatched buddy cop duo unto themselves.
Yeah. That's true.
I'm here with...
I go by the book, John.
Brendan's by the book.
The problem with Robin is he's off the
That's
book.
right. If you're one of our patrons,
Right.
You've heard them over on our Vincent Price podcast, Price is Right, where we refer to them as the Jones Boys. It's Brendan Jones.
Hello.
And Robin Jones.
So join me, James Mason, and Robert Wagner as we journey to Prince Valiant. Who the hell writes this copy?
Yes, excuse me. Yes, this season we are focusing on pulp and comic strip heroes. Now I say heroes specifically because I don't want to get into like the Blondie movies or the Peanuts films, or because if you go, especially if you go into the world of comic strips. We could be we would have to do every version of Annie they've done. You know, it's like you can get lost in this stuff. So that's why I really
Gasoline Alley.
Yeah.
I'm joking. They never, as far as I know, there was never
all of those high and lowest adaptations.
So many. I can't stand.
Like one that Edward Albee did in the early '60s. That's insane.
The Far Side movie. You know. Yeah, it's just.
Who's Afraid of Mary Worth? No, wait, that's not it.
This is specific. And Brendan, you and I discussed this before too. I also am trying to stick with singular feature films. Meaning not serials, because we would be at that forever. Because I know you did make a impassioned plea for one Buster Crabbe.
I mean, also The Shadow.
The Shadow,
the '94 movie, but there were serials.
There were Green Hornet serials. There were those Dick Tracy, not serials, but those like 60-minute B pictures.
Serials.
And that's kind of why I avoided all those, only because that would be like a year of the show if we did those.
Yeah.
And we could have dipped in a little bit, but I chose to start here in 1954 with Prince
Inglorious
Valiant.
Cinescope.
Oh, Inglorious Cinescope. By the way, this movie led me down the rabbit hole of Cinemascope posters, where I love that their whole thing is, you don't need glasses.
Right.
Leave the glasses at home.
Yeah.
I just love it. The movie's so big, you'll see it fine. Cinemascope.
Meanwhile, Helen Keller's like,
Blinky.
I don't get it.
Yeah. Man, already with the Helen Keller material. Yes, no, this is 1954.
You're not going to need to squint at Prince Valiant.
Prince Valiant, although I will say...
Who's the pretty girl with the sword?
With the swinging sword.
There is a great anecdote about Robert Wagner being mistaken for Jane Wyman on this set that I love.
Yeah.
Love it.
Patty, I thought you were Jane Wyman.
Jane Wyman. Dear Lord. It's Robert Wagner.
And now, the Gold Diggers, I think. It could be the Rolling Stones.
I don't know. I didn't show up.
How'd you all get in my dressing room?
Yeah.
How'd you all get in my room?
I didn't show up for rehearsal. Why would I?
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to sing this song straight. If you want to hear it straight, you buy the Albion album.
But as is often the case on podcasts I do with him, Brendan, you're sort of the keeper of the source material and a lot of this stuff. So, you know, I don't want to spend too long on it, but let's talk a little bit about what this
John,
is. Yeah.
I'll say this:
Yeah.
the Brendan Jones vault
Yeah.
is
Well,
it's secure, it's airtight, and when it is opened, angels weep.
Yeah.
But the children sing and dance.
I hear Geraldo's doing a special where he's going to open up the Brendan Jones vault.
Yeah.
What will he find?
And again, it will just be.
I've always wondered though, what was best case scenario in that? Like, what did they hope to find in their bodies? Right? Like
Gwyneth
bodies, yes,
money,
bodies, machine guns.
Yeah.
Whatever.
But it's just like, I feel like no matter what, it would have been
Edward
a
G.
disappointment.
Robinson going, yeah,
I mean, and no matter what, it was going to be a disappointment on some level. Because, like, how exciting!
Okay, John.
Anyway,
stop rubbing in that I watched all 3 hours of it.
and we're going to be opening the vault any time now.
John,
all right.
It was a different time.
It was a different time. There was no streaming. There was nothing else to watch. So
there was nothing else to watch.
There were 4 channels.
Yeah, it was this or a Miami Vice.
It was the original 4chan.
Yeah. There you go. But anyway, talking about the originals,
A lot of revenge porn on TV in the
we're kicking things off with Prince Valiant. I believe
that's what the 4th season of Charlie's Angels wasn't it?
Brendan, correct me if I'm wrong, but is this the longest running comic strip? I think because it's still going.
Yeah, I know it's still going.
It started in
in
37,
for a long time, for decades, and maybe even from the beginning. It is only once a week.
It is a weekly book, yeah, or it is a weekly
Sunday,
strip.
Because if you've ever seen it, even now, even with the people that have ghosted it for decades, it tends to be just stunningly and intricately illustrated. It could not be a daily strip. There's just no way.
No, right.
But yeah, 1937. So it is still going, and I was actually surprised because the Wikipedia breaks down all the people who've taken it over.
Right.
And actually, I had no idea that Mark Schultz, who I love, the guy who did Xenozoic tales, Cadillacs and dinosaurs, all that.
Cadillacs and dinosaurs.
Amazing illustrator, but he's been writing it for, like, I was like, what?
Since 04.
And Gary Gianni, who I absolutely love, who's done stuff with Mike Mignola for Hellboy, and he's a go-to because he does a lot of the classic style illustration stuff. He's done a lot of Conan illustrations, not like comics, but like for the reprints, the books. He's amazing. He's been drawing it for a long time. Anyway, so yes, it's still going. It started in 37. Hal Foster, the guy who created it, was the original artist on the Tarzan comic strip before that.
Yep.
And Hearst was blown away by him, as rightfully should. And he's like, "You got anything original?" And he goes, "I've been kicking this thing around called Prince Arn."
And they're like, "That's not catchy."
Well, I mean, actually, he greenlit it.
Yeah.
And it was not last minute, but it was towards before it was published, the guy in charge of King Features, because this is one of the King Features strips.
Yes, we'll be talking a lot about King Features over the course of this season.
Yeah.
Also, I was surprised and saddened to see that that he has been animated in an episode of Defenders of the Earth that I never saw.
Oh, wow.
So apparently in one episode they go back in time and they hang out with Prince Valiant, because King Features means shared home of Flash Gordon, Mandrake the Magician, the Phantom, and
all
also
our faves.
Also Popeye.
Popeye.
Yep. So I mean,
I think we're gonna get to all of those characters at some point this season.
And a lot of John, I've mentioned to you before that ABC Saturday morning series of what they called movies, but really like hour-long animated pilots for things. One of them it has like a name like Popeye Saves the World or something, and it's basically all of the King Syndicate characters in one animated special, in which the heroes are kidnapped by some goofball.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's up to Popeye and all the goofy characters to save the
Yes.
Phantom and Flash Gordon and all those guys.
That's very fun.
yeah. I always forget that existed.
And of
but
course,
you
there
did.
was also, we'll talk about it, I'm
Well,
sure,
it
at
was
some
pretty
point.
big for 7-year-old Robin Jones. So
Of course, and there
Okay.
was in the early 90s of my childhood, there was a Prince Valiant animated series that aired on TV, The Legend of Prince Valiant.
Yeah.
That was a
The
cable.
thing is, it's worthy. I mean, I'm glad I've got these collections, but like I was saying, it was the head of King Features is like, you can't call him Prince Arn.
No, because that's
that's
not going to sell books, folks.
but the father's name was King Arn, right?
They kept Arn in it, but Val, is
right.
he's
I love the
Valiant,
idea of like
which is a name that many Nordic Viking young men were named.
Valiant.
Valiant.
Yeah, it's me, Valiant, the Viking.
The whole thing with the strip is, and this is how I feel about it still, is that like I do have a few volumes. It's awesome. It's just about the art for me.
Yeah. Oh God.
The
Yeah.
storytelling is fine. The fact that Hal Foster chose not to use word balloons,
Yes,
and still to this day, Prince Valiant only uses captions and prose boxes with all this beautiful art.
Yeah.
So it's not historically accurate at all, but what impressed people with Prince Valiant is the amount of detail, because even though Hal Foster was mixing like 5th century and late chivalry, and
but talk about
all
another
over the
thing we'll
map.
be talking about through trends of all of this stuff is utter nonsense when it comes to that stuff. That's like the backbone of pulp storytelling.
But what's
and
weird
in
is
the film, I was going to ask Brenda, do they bring up Christianity in the strips that much? Because
do.
the film, it's like gigantic. And I
Thank
kept
God
going,
he's a Christian.
they do, but the thing is that
Victor McLaughlin is a Christian Viking who still says "by Odin," by the way.
Yeah, I know.
Throughout the entire,
Yeah,
that's a thing.
By Odin and Jesus.
Actually, because I assume when we're examining and investigating, as John said, these things we'll be looking at. How close did they get to the mark?
Yeah.
This gets pretty close to the mark, which is both a good and bad thing.
Because
it doesn't match the sheer poetry of Hal Foster's cartooning is unbelievable.
Yeah.
The detail work is unbelievable.
Yeah.
I can look at a single panel of Prince Valiant endlessly and go, that guy, just like Milton Caniff. But the difference between Milton Caniff, who did, Terry and the Pirates,
yeah,
is that guy told a rip-roaring tale.
Yeah, Terry and the Pirates reads so much better.
It's a movie every time.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's amazing, and his storytelling techniques. But Al Foster is stately and staid,
and that was
so even when it's action adventure, you're like, oh,
that was my memory as a kid, opening up the Sunday comics and thinking it looked so cool, but being so bored the second I started reading any of the words.
That was my hot take of the movie. Was this movie recaptures all the ennui I had reading the comic strip.
No, absolutely.
The only thing it was missing was, unlike the comic strip, which has narration on every bloomin' panel that feels like they've taken it just whole cloth out of a book.
From a novel. Yeah, it's a narration.
The movie does not have Michael Rennie talking the entire time.
I wish
throughout the movie.
I love that opening.
The opening is great. Yeah, it would be great if the whole movie had that.
The thing is that it is even how Foster dropped the stuff that I would have kept reading for, because early on, the storylines that this movie is, they use a little of the actual origin, which is very beginning of the comic strip. Except for he's supposed to be like 14. And
right. News.
And not then with a voice like this. You're not going to mistake a guy like this for 14. It's more like 43, and he's had 3 scotches already.
Well, that's
Listen
the thing.
To me.
That's the thing about actors of this era. Even at 24, Robert Wagner seems 45. You know what I mean? Like, they all had that vibe to them.
We'll get to it. But anyway, the whole thing is, and then they take a later storyline and smack it here.
Yeah.
Where he actually does regain his father's throne. In between that, Hal Foster actually made it like medieval fantasy. there were creatures a little bit, and there was Merlin, and so there was magic.
Yeah, that was my big
and then
question with the
even
movie, was they could use some Merlin in this.
Yeah, and then he's in the comic strip.
Hey, which Merlin showing
Hal
up?
Foster, he basically he wasn't comfortable with that, I guess, because he dropped it, and it became just the life of Prince Valiant in the Round Table. And suddenly it's like, where are the beasties that he gets to fight in the swamps?
It's hard to come.
It's
hard to
done.
It's hard to
No,
introduce that stuff and then
whole
come back.
comic strips being devoted to Prince Valiant learning to farm.
Yeah.
You know?
I remember a lot of like long ship voyages where it's like they're still at sea.
And even though it's decades old, he did allow his character to grow up to some degree and keep, he had family. He becomes a grandfather. I think currently in the comics he's a grandfather.
Oh, probably.
But it is just a lifetime that gets stretched out. Where I guess it's similar to American comics, but whatever. Yeah. This movie is actually pretty close, except for it just doesn't look as good or even move as well as the comic strip. But it's pretty accurate.
I would have stopped you at it doesn't move, but talk about stayed. My God, this movie is in no hurry to get anywhere.
From top to bottom miscast, except for James Mason.
James Mason,
could be because it's like, yes, I am here, and I am actually British.
Yeah.
Are you thrown by that?
Who else is?
Brian Ahern was British, and
he does fine. But I mean, Arthur just shows up and is like, "I'm King Arthur."
But I will say, as miscast as he is, God, do I love
McLagan is, I think, Irish, and I think I know.
Was Sterling Hayden
Irish,
like Welsh? No, I'm just
Sterling Hayden.
I love
Sterling Hayden.
I love Sterling Hayden.
He is sober for the most part.
He is terrible. In
even he seems to, like, I can almost spot where the camera cuts before he's like, really? This is what I'm fucking doing? Okay, all right. I get it. Jesus Christ.
The way he just plows
in
through those lines, like he's thinking about, sailing his boat.
Yeah,
but I mean, it is cliche that if you're going back in time and it's Arthur's court, you're expecting everybody to be British.
Yeah.
You're expecting even probably Valiant to have some sort of British accent,
or at least the old-timey Mid-Atlantic, right? Like
at least Mid-Atlantic or something. But even the Vikings in this, the one guy who is not our main guy was Bothar.
Bothar. Yeah, Bothar.
Yeah, Victor.
Boltar.
Yeah, and again, they're being totally accurate because in the comics he has the little ponytail things. And I'm like, oh, there you go. But like the guy with the winged helmet, who's like the Slygon's chief.
Yeah.
That guy is like, the traitors, we are going to get the readings of all the lines in this movie are flat as.
And I will say it is not a unique sin of this movie if you've seen those other movies. And I have a lot of affinity for, like, I love the Vikings, right? Which is, you've got fucking Tony Curtis running around going, I'm a Viking. There's a Viking over here.
Sure. And then the Black Shield of, what was it? Black Shield of Fallsworth.
I mean, it's every time I watch, I love Spartacus, but same thing with Tony Curtis. Every time he's just like, praise Spartacus here in ancient Rome. And you're just like, God damn it. He's always from Brooklyn.
So he brought the full Bernie Schwartz.
He really did. I agree with the guys at Blank Check that every line he has in Spartacus, it sounds like he's ordering from a deli.
Well, one of my favorite TV movies growing up was the Richard Chamberlain Count of Monte Cristo.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Tony Curtis plays Fernand, his arch foe, and the leader of the conspiracy. And at the very end, when he reveals that he's actually Edmond Dantes, and Tony Curtis has this huge villain monologue. So, Edmond Dantes finally revealed himself. Now we shall see what really will occur when the dog and Chamberlain goes, yes, it will be interesting to see if this dog barks. And Curtis leaps on the table with a sword and goes, he bites.
He bites.
You ain't seen nothing yet, Robin, until you've seen Dawn of the Mummy.
Dawn of the Mummy.
It's something
Or
like
What
that.
about Return
It's
of the
something like
Lobster
that.
People or whatever the hell that was?
Well, but this one, we watched a Mummy movie. If you're a Meet the Monsters listener, and if
Yeah.
you're not, go over to Patreon. Go over to our
long time
Patreon
viewers.
page. But where Tony Curtis plays the Mummy in a movie, and he is literally going, "By the power of Ra, I will reclaim my Egyptian homeland."
He's supposed to be an ancient Egyptian in the modern world, and he sounds like Tony Curtis.
I say this loving Tony Curtis.
You keep defiling our tombs.
When Tony Curtis was used right, I love him. But
here's the thing.
Yeah, but he's not in this movie.
You watch
So
movies like The Manitou, and you go, okay.
But all of that is
Here's
to
the
say
thing.
he's not in this movie.
We have now talked about Tony Curtis for 10 minutes. He's not in this movie.
No,
though his lovely wife is.
Wagner was afraid that this movie was going to be his Black Shield of Falls.
Yeah.
Yes. And
he's not wrong.
Actually being
He's
exactly
not wrong.
Yeah.
So the whole thing is completely miscast. Completely,
Pretty
except
much
for James Mason.
James
And
Mason.
I kept thinking also, did Alan Napier have other work that week, or did Charles Coburn or George Sanders were they doing other things then?
Apparently so.
There was more
just
British people in Hollywood at that point. It wasn't
clearly a studio picture where they just pulled their people that they had and said, "You're contracted. Here you go. Do it."
Yeah, well, and it's interesting.
I would have been
because...
happy with Hans Conried. You know, anybody.
Sure. Sure. I mean, I think so. It's interesting because I was looking at the history of this movie and sort of the journey of it to the screen. Because this ended up. This was what, Fox? No. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was Fox. But MGM. But MGM had the rights to Prince Valiant for quite a while, and basically they put screenwriter after screenwriter, and they would go, "We can't wrangle this material into a feature film. There's just too much here. We don't even know." And
well, they also they bought the rights to 8 years worth of it.
Yes.
And I'm like, what were you guys thinking? And I guess they were thinking franchise. Like,
Yeah.
I guess they thought they might make several Prince Valiant movies.
They were going, "Boys, meet our next Andy Hardy. Andy's got a sword."
What I love though is that MGM then does make Knights of the Round Table. They were just like, fuck Prince Valiant, let's just go right to what we want to do, which is King Arthur, right? Like, just we can't figure out Prince Valiant, screw it, just go to the thing people know.
Well, and it was MGM's Ivanhoe success that kind of lit the fire under everybody else to make their own. And this was, you know,
Fox,
and MGM in their to their credit, they have a great version of the Three Musketeers. They have this great Ivanhoe. They have this great remake of Prisoner of Zenda. They have a really sweet version of Scaramouche that I know Brendan's seen a gajillion times. Dude, it is super sweet. Don't make that face.
It's, again, the source material is so much better.
Okay.
I know. But and make those really three chapters and
so
really deserves a really good adaptation.
So Fox brings in Dudley Nichols.
Limited series.
Fox brings in Dudley Nichols, who's an extremely well-respected screenwriter at the time.
President of the Writers Guild. If it weren't for him denying an Oscar that he won, the Writers Guild might not have had as much legitimacy.
But this is the guy who wrote movies like Stagecoach and Bringing Up Baby. After this, he writes one of my favorite, I think, underappreciated Westerns, although I'm sure...
Tin Star?
Tin Star, exactly. I love Tin Star.
Tin Star is coming out. John, I know you love Super Sweet disc editions.
You know I do.
There's a really beautiful one coming out pretty soon. I think it's either Arrow or
I've got it. I will absolutely get that. That's always one of that 50s era of Westerns that I think... people sleep on that. And
John, and speaking of 50s Westerns, Henry Hathaway, who's much better known as a Western director than an adventure movie director, although he did direct quite a few really good adventure movies. The cinematography in this movie, the vistas. That he really uses Cinemascope really
No,
well.
He does right up until like it's time to put the stars in the center of it, right? Like
Right,
that's
and
the
then-
thing where you
problem
go.
is that it's the combo platter where and they do talk up like we went to England and shot of these beautiful
that footage
castles.
is gorgeous.
It is, but then it is some bad matte paintings,
Yeah.
and then is some very bad rear projection.
Well, because
And I mean, and every time we're in the forest,
yeah,
it is soundstage,
Yeah.
and all I can sit there is like, you guys are chasing something that Michael Curtiz did
Well,
perfectly
yeah,
years
yeah, yeah.
before.
Or-
you guys are after the Adventures of Robin Hood, which
Yeah.
looks 80 times better than this.
well, and it's interesting.
years
Right.
before, and you're like,
Yeah, yeah.
wow.
Or as
I know
you-
they
I
spent crazy
absolutely
money on this
agree.
movie.
I
Oh,
just,
yeah.
I wasn't, because I'd remembered that I hadn't, when I saw Prince Valiant the first time, I hadn't really enjoyed it. So I was kind of looking for stuff that I was more impressed with when it worked.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
enjoyed it when it worked.
No,
I came to it with the stereotypical open mind, and it's not. I didn't hate this movie, but it is just like,
but it's
No.
yeah.
like
Yeah.
we've mentioned. Like I was gonna say, like even the other contemporaries of the time. Like I would rather watch Ivanhoe or Knights of the Round Table.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's the thing. Is like this is so. Aside from the novelty of it being the comic strip, this is such a lesser version of a million movies like this at this time.
Right.
And this is just not as
Right.
good
Yeah.
as most of them.
You just keep thinking about the other Janet Leigh costume pictures, and you think about, the time where James Mason is like awesome in the Prisoner of Zendo remake.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
all these things keep running through your head as you're watching.
This is also, I think, trying to its detriment, it's chasing a couple of different audiences. So
Yep.
they are aiming this movie at 9-year-olds, and
Oh, yeah.
9-year-olds who are fans of the comic strip probably
Right.
in the day. I'm trying to put
Yeah.
myself there. They
Right.
probably loved the hell out of it.
Sure.
Because if, let's say, there was an 8-year-old or Brendan Jones in 1954 who had
Yeah.
read the comic strip, I would have had my needs met. I would sit there going, oh my God, singing sword, there it is.
Right.
And at the end of it, just like I always do when they finally like put them in the classic costume, at the very end he walks out and he's in classic Prince Valiant. I'm just
Yeah.
like, yeah, the 8-year-olds would be like, he looks like he does in the comic strip. There
But then he
is. He's
opens his
got
mouth.
the blue tunic with there's the symbol, and he's got
And
the
you know,
red cape.
They did talk about making a sequel to this, Brennan, where it would be, okay, now Valiant and Alita are married and
Yeah.
Yeah.
those adventures. But, I mean, there's just not enough there.
However, there would have been a couple people who sitting there going, shoving their glasses up, going, I'm sorry, Elia and Alita were not sisters. And Elia, the original love interest,
Yeah.
she actually died in the... I will
Right.
give Hal Foster that. He didn't save the cat. Like Prince Valiant's first girlfriend drowns.
I mean,
And then he ends up with Alita, and she becomes his wife, and he has kids.
I think it's very interesting. We just mentioned James Mason. This same year, he's in a movie I wore out a VHS of as a kid, which is 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which
Sure.
is
Oh,
a
geez,
movie
yeah,
I watched
yeah.
again and again. That was one of my favorite movies I had on tape as a kid. I
Well,
love that
the thing
movie.
is,
and it's
whenever I
just
add
so,
one of these things to Letterboxd and it puts it chronologically,
Chronologically, yeah.
So I like to go back and
Yeah.
then see, like, and it's basically this one falls in between. It's like Casanova's Big Night and like Seven Samurai, and I'm
Yeah.
just like going,
Right.
oh,
well, it's so interesting.
What a year! What a year!
He made three
Yeah.
movies this year, and the other two are 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and A Star Is Born. So Prince Valiant
Yeah.
was the throwaway picture for Mason in
Yeah.
54.
And yet,
that was
James
paying
Mason.
for it.
Mason's the best
engaged.
thing in this movie.
He's the best thing in this movie. He's engaged.
Yeah.
He is.
Yeah.
He seems of the period, or
and
at least what we want.
it's a joy every time they cut to him, because he's got the smile on his face.
Yeah. I mean,
I as someone
Mason
who
was
was rightly
always-
offended, I believe if he could be
When they
confined
pull
to
that
his
twist in there,
room.
where you find out that the Black Knight is Sir Brack.
never
What?
saw that coming. Not from moment one when they even said there was a Black Knight and James Mason's in the movie.
I actually had to leave my apartment, just step out into the hall, catch my breath, and come back in. I was what?
Right. Yeah, that's a distinct.
He was a friend to Val and Sir Gawain.
Brendan. So when you had this dialogue, were you talking to your action figures at the time?
Can you fellas believe this? All you Supermen, could you believe it? James Mason, a highlight in this thing, but let's talk about this cast because I do think it's a very 1954 cast.
Oh my God! It's the most 1954 cast you could ever have.
Well, that's right. I think that's why it's a snapshot, right?
I guess the other British actors in Los Angeles were
busy that week.
Because
everyone out. They literally called everybody.
You only have a couple in this.
Yeah.
3.
It's wild to me. I mean, the second. What I like is when you see a movie like this, and the second you hear like Robert Wagner plays Prince Valiant, I don't even have to see the movie to go, well, that's not going to be good. No, there's no way.
And he looks fine. He's very, in shape for this.
I mean, but he looks like Robert Wagner,
leaping around, a lot of leaping around.
And another guy who once again
isn't the problem. The hair is accurate to the
comics. The hair looks like shit, though. Come on, it looks ridiculous.
No, it is what you want from a Prince Valiant.
Listen, I worked for weeks to grow my hair out and then have it cut that way. So
it's so interesting. He says that, but then in trivia they say it's a wig. So I don't know.
I weirdly think it's a combo, and I think
it probably is some kind of combo. Because also the styling of it is. I don't think, obviously, like the shaping of it. I don't think you could get
the scene where he comes out of the water, like He's
got a few of those where he's coming out of water, and it looks real then.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's a thing of they shot it in pieces. And so sometimes it's a wig, sometimes I don't know. But I will say
it's shaped so rigidly. That was one of the problems, is that you're like going, well, if it's natural hair, it should be flipping around a lot more.
I think that's more what I'm reacting to.
Yeah, a helmet thing. Yeah, you're like, that doesn't.
I think that's more what I'm reacting to, is the rigid nature of it. I do know it's from the comics, but he looks ridiculous, Brendan. He doesn't look cool. He looks very silly.
I got no problem with the hair.
I know you got no problem with the hair, but it's one of those things where it's like
it's
John, we're coming to the problem with having Brendan as an IP squad officer.
Well, he is the most he is the most rigid of IP squad officers. I mean, you talk about by the book, literally by the book.
I just think that if you need to change things when you adapt something, if you need to change things, there should be real reasons. And I don't think you should do a Zack Snyder Watchmen. I don't believe you should go panel by panel. I agree with you about Sin City, what you were talking about before, Robin. You should not be that slavish. But if it doesn't need to be changed, and people have a pre-existing attachment to iconography, like the look, or the world it's set in, or the personality of the character, that doesn't need to be changed, because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Don't.
Yeah, but I remember when you were disappointed when you found out that Chris Evans and all the other guys who played Johnny Storm didn't actually set themselves on fire. And I thought that was...
Why say
that was a little over the top?
Hold out till you find a guy with flame powers. That's
at
all
the
I'm
very
saying.
least, Michael Chiklis allowed them to glue orange rocks to his body. So
hey, actually, honestly, bless Michael Chiklis, man. His commitment to that. I mean, that sounded like a horrific experience.
Chad and I on this week, we talked a lot about Fantastic Four, and we will give credit where it's due. 2 of those terrible Tim Story movies, but 2 of that cast are perfect. Dead on. And
any scene with them together is great.
And actually, I don't mind whatever the hell that guy's name is.
Griffith.
Reed. He's not great, but he's not terrible. And then you have Alba, and I don't blame her.
Yeah.
She took the money, but she's wrong.
That's it's like Robert Wagner. It's just miscast. Yeah, it's exactly.
All right, moving on.
Back to Prince Valiant, though. But yes, Robert Wagner is just... especially like young Robert Wagner is such the most stock American leading man,
He's so wooden. And when he's called upon, especially towards the end, to give speeches,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
boy.
No, talk about
Well,
times when
and-
I just
I mean,
started to
you
veer
know,
away.
when Mason starts arguing back,
Yes.
which is one of my favorite scenes, is them arguing back and forth before the duel starts.
Yeah.
I mean, he just motors, he
Oh, he-
steamrolls through Wagner.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, because the other thing is, I never think of, like, when I think of things that Robert Wagner was good in, it's stuff like Pink Panther or Harper, when there's sort of a caddish, high society kind of guy, as
He's one of
opposed
those
to, he's
guys
not
that
an
was
earnest
meant to
young
be
man,
a movie star or TV star. He was meant for that, but you had to hit his lane. And when you did, he was good at being. I mean, Jesus, he's great in Heart to Heart. He's perfect for that.
It Takes a Thief was a great vehicle for him as
It
well.
Takes a Thief is a great vehicle.
Or Switch.
Yeah.
What I love about Robert Wagner, which I also make fun of him for, but it's true. His voice is this weird combination of Frank Oz with Mae West's cadence, so it always sounds like he's seducing whoever he's talking to or trying to.
I think,
and so when he bumps up his energy, like when he, it's kind of bizarre to watch in a way. Like, for instance, in Harper, when he's acting like this kind of golly gee guy that wants to break in the door, and Paul Newman just looks at him as he nearly breaks his shoulder. It's fun, but it's not as easy. It's not exactly in his lane.
Right.
He's much better.
He's very limited, to tell you the truth. And he can be.
That's not an uncommon criticism. I think most people would agree. Very limited. Very good at being Robert Wagner.
On the other side of that, when he bumps up his energy in the Pink Panther, it works beautifully.
Yeah, because that character.
It's because he's already a con man. He's just over enthusiastic about it.
But here he's playing a younger man. I mean, I think they're trying to give us an 18-year-old Prince Valiant or something. But he is. You all right, Robin?
But I'm startled by what you were talking about.
Yeah, but he
18,
he is also trying to youngify stuff. So just like at the very beginning, I'm interested, like, how's he gonna do it?
Yeah.
And literally his first scene where he's waving to his Viking pals and he's like going, "Mother, father," and it is that weird. It's in the back of the throat, Frank Oz kind of thing. But he's like, going,
it's okay, it's our friend.
Yeah, it's our friend. And he goes out and sees him, and I'm like, oh boy, this is gonna be fun because he's trying to be young Robert Wagner. But the second he does his oath before he goes, which is only 2 minutes later or 3 minutes later, he's decided for gravitas, and it goes full Robert Wagner, and you're like, what?
Because
that guy is literally 37
that's
years old.
That's the thing I'm saying about him.
I promise to bring back the sword and restore the honor of the throne.
It also sounds like he's trying to seduce his father.
Well, that's okay. That's what I'm.
Might I say that you look very good today, Father, and
that's
extremely handsome.
That's the point I'm trying to make.
I vow to protect this land.
Earnestness is not a great. Is not really a thing he can play. That's the thing. That's the thing that I bring up is it's the earnestness. It's the heroic. Like the Wagner has an edge on him. That's why he works well as a con man or a thief, because it does sort of feel like that seducing thing I think you're reacting to is why it's like, yeah, this guy's got ulterior motives to a certain extent. There's a part of him that's like, I'm doing the oath, but
actually the Black Knight.
That's what I mean. Yeah, it's sort of like
he's that Valiant is the Black Knight.
He's doing the oath, but he's also thinking about what am I going to get out of this, right? Like,
if it was possible for him to have done a French accent, he could have been a Lancelot, because again, someone who's cocky and kind of smarmy and a playboy.
Yeah,
I mean,
he'd say moi all over the place.
Yeah, but I think that yes, personality-wise, that would fit more. I never think of him as like, young and heroic.
On crayon blue.
Like I said, there's a reason, and like Harper's a perfect example of that. When you see him pitted against a guy like Paul Newman, you really see oh yeah, that's the Robert Wagner part, right? He's not going to be Harper.
So here we have all of these good studio. They're all good. Studio actors.
No, they're all pros. Everybody,
and they're all
pros.
But it doesn't matter. It's what the MCU to this day does well. It's not just about get a big name. It's get a big name who will fit. This isn't the case. They just put Sterling Hayden in a wig, and he is not here. He is checked out from the get-go, and he is a piece of wood. And I know Sterling Hayden.
He's a swaggering,
it up.
He's a swaggering actor who also could play very sort of dour, and moody.
Love Sterling Hayden.
What he does great is like movies like Johnny Guitar, The Asphalt Jungle, or The Killing.
Love The Killing. One of my favorite.
Come on.
One of my favorite movies.
And then when he's older and drunk on the set, he's still terrific in The Long Goodbye. You know, and 9 to 5.
When he's sailing a boat and drinking whiskey and writing his book.
Right.
Yeah,
well, that's what this movie kept making me think was he's just thinking about getting out of his boat.
He is just thinking about the
he's
next
literally
time he gets to the marina.
Every time he stares off in the distance, he's like, "Can I see the ocean from here?"
So he's a waste here, and that's weird.
Because
I was looking forward to seeing him in it, and then I'm like, "Oh, you're not."
Do you guys? Did you guys happen to see this in the trivia that he was not the first?
Tim Conway was in it. I was promised. It came up on the screen. Tim Conway, and I watched.
And
I'm
like, where is Tim?
Tom Conway
is
George
in it.
Sanders' brother.
Yeah.
Plays Sir Kay. And I'm sorry.
You always have been.
Movie. I was like,
he sees the T.
Maybe he's one of the Vikings. I kept thinking.
Is he in there? Yeah, you were pausing it, watching frame by frame.
Brennan, originally, he was supposed to play the oldest Viking, like a really old Viking.
Yeah, on his
knees.
If you, he was going to be on his knees too.
Actually, if you watch it frame by frame, you can see him and Harvey Korman in the background doing bits. They're doing bits back there.
I will say this: a couple of the action sequences, I was like, all right.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about who else is in this movie. Because our lovely leading lady, who we mentioned earlier, Janet Leigh,
and the young Deborah Paget, guys.
Yeah.
I have. Okay, I can only say this, and what universe? Not even a Hal Foster cartoon universe. In what universe is Deborah Paget the one no one wants?
Yeah.
I just find it ridiculous that
Janet Leigh is stunning, of course, but her sister also stunning. Gorgeous.
Brendan,
Deborah Paget, I'm sitting there going like,
Brendan,
I'm right over here.
You didn't hear Gawain drunkenly dismiss Deborah Paget as
holy
charming.
Crap. I know.
She's got dark hair though. She's got that dark hair.
That whole 1954 thing at the end where it's like, well, we comforted each other, and we've been doing more of that.
Yeah.
And I'm like going, what do you mean?
I'm slamming her. I'm slamming her, Valiant. Giving it to her.
Slamming her. I'm
giving it to her left and right, pal. That's right.
Apparently, Robin just got some mail. That's important.
No, I'm paying attention and agreeing with you in a hearty chuckle as I'm also picking up.
I feel like
when belated birthday gift for my.
When you talk about the everybody being miscast in this movie, they are probably miscast, but they are also exactly what I would expect for 1954 leading. Like I feel like we would be less harsh about them if
for Janet Leigh
Wagner
and Deborah
was better,
Paget, who neither has doesn't have a lot to do. Obviously, Alita is more important, and she has some dialogue.
Yeah.
She and Deborah Paget they know the tone.
Yeah.
They're matching it. It would be better if they were somewhat British, because
but like I said,
in old England.
I think they are. Also, I think this is, as you bring up, because they are less important to the movie. It's unfortunate. But I do feel like with a better Valiant, with a better Gawain, I think we would be more forgiving of that. You know what I mean? I think that's the thing in the movie that I was thinking about is like, yes, they are miscast, but I feel like they could have slid by more if the two male leads weren't wholly wrong for it.
Yeah, exactly.
because
and,
yikes.
and even the setup of like the zany complications. By the way, was there crazy like sex farce stuff in Prince Valiant? I don't remember that. Brennan,
Actually,
at all.
Maybe.
as you were saying, like there would be entire strips that were romantic comedy, and
Oh, really?
he would go there. It was like
I mean-
slice of life kind of stuff. In addition
Yeah.
to
It kinda
now, there's a battle for several months out of the year, and now he's back home and dealing
It
with.
kinda
Like,
I
had to be,
remember
right?
whole strips being devoted to how you make an effective sail for
Well,
yeah,
and
a
you know what?
battleship.
So in some ways, when you talk about this movie being kind of faithful in that way, Brendan, that's kind of what this movie, like the whole the structure and pacing of this movie is so strange, right? Like
Yep.
it really is, because you start the movie with the whole
Right.
thing about the exiled king, and he's out there with his wife and son, Prince Valiant, who's our noble hero, and then
he's a Viking king who gets overthrown by his own men, and that king is considered a traitor to the Vikings because
right.
he's Christian. And
Crazy.
so it's like, yes, there is a division amongst the Vikings of the old schoolers are like, we don't like Christians, blah, blah, get out of here. So they stole his sword and they stole his throne. And basically he says,
Brennan, you're glossing over that it's a singing sword.
it's a singing sword, which becomes like a gag later on in Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yeah.
And the Bugs Bunny King Arthur.
Yes, that's right. And it comes
Yosemite
out.
Sam is the Black Knight.
Yep. And it comes
where
out and it's singing like Frank Sinatra. Yeah.
Well, and Roger Rabbit is singing Frank Sinatra. In that Bugs Bunny cartoon, it's just going.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah, that's right. And vibrating. That's right.
Yeah.
So no, I mean, and they don't go into that except for they say that's the singing sword that only grants its power to its rightful owner.
Right.
And then when he gets it at the end for the duel, I'm sitting there going like,
where's
why
the
isn't
power?
it? Well, yeah, where's the singing part?
Well, yeah, talk about like,
Okay.
because I love that they talked about the approach to this movie was nobody could crack the script, as I said, and then our very talented screenwriter comes along, and according to the description, he just like went like this comic strip, this comic strip, this comic strip, and then put them on a board and went, that's the movie.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
Like, he just-
Dudley Nichols was a really good quality journeyman screenwriter, and also a former member of the Algonquin Round Table too when he was a journalist.
Mm-hmm.
Very.
I mean, yeah, that's sort of the thing, and so
this movie has a lot of unforgettable zingers in it.
Well, you
that only a member of the Algonquin Round Table could
that you when you talk about that though, it is sort of like that is kind of the thing where it's like, I don't know that he's fully checked out, but he knows this is not A tier, right? When he's writing
No,
the
I
script.
think he knows
it's
that
it's a job for hire. It's a work for hire.
It's a work for hire, and also I think even though this was, as I said before, apparently the second most expensive movie that Fox put out that year, second only to The Robe. So they spent
Classic.
money, but I think they were aiming at the younger audience. So this is a very expensive B movie. And so I think everyone shows up going, we're just doing a comic
I think
strip.
that's kind
what's
of
the
what's
point?
that's kind of what's strange about it, right? Because it is shot in CinemaScope. It is presented like an epic, but at the same time,
it's basic.
And that's why, I think that's a little bit why I feel so strange about it watching it, right? Because it is a B movie, but it has all this like pomp and circumstance, where you're going and you're just watching it going like, yeah, but this is kind of dumb for like for how grand it's supposed to be. You're going like,
it really
this should be better.
Even taking in the source material. Sorry, I don't know what's up with my throat.
You're choking on Prince Valiant.
Probably because of my gig from last night. But anyway, even considering the source material, this is dumbed down. This is dumbed down from a Sunday comic strip. So you're like, what?
Well, and it's and
this is a Cliff's Notes of
What
Prince
always strikes me about movies from this era, and certainly some are more guilty than others, and this one definitely is like when it's always just like experience the excitement and the adventure and the action, and then you'll sit down and watch it and go, Jesus, nothing happens for long stretches of time.
Right.
Boy, this is not the action extravaganza I was promised.
Hathaway had done adventure movies. He had done The Black Swan, and he had done a number.
Oh, love the Black
love
Swan.
the Black Swan.
Adventure
Great
films. So it wasn't really him. I keep wondering if
because there are moments
they felt like they were doing a kiddie thing, that they didn't put as much into
That could be it. I mean, that could be it. Maybe they, once they got the script in hand and they're like going, all right, this is what we're going to work with. And I don't think they felt maybe, like, let's elevate it. I think they just
no one was elevating anything.
This feels workmanlike.
It felt like a studio head saying, it's just a Wallace Beery wrestling picture.
I actually had that thought while I was watching it. I just kept thinking somebody going, Wallace Beery, wrestling picture. Do I have to draw your roadmap? This is literally Page Boy haircut, singing sword.
Yeah.
Do I got to draw your roadmap? I'm like, yeah, I got you.
It does feel that way, yeah.
What more do you need?
No, and I think that stems to even the other thing is they really want to use that Cinemascope, which is so wide. And a lot of movies really take advantage of it. But here I think it often plays to the detriment of the movie because everything is played so wide. And I think particularly one of the biggest things I hated in this movie is the final duel between Sir Brack and Prince Valiant. And I just kept thinking, at no point is there any close-up of either of these guys where I'm getting any sense of the intensity of their fighting. It is all as wide as possible.
Plus, it goes on too long.
And
it doesn't have the dynamism
music
of an Errol Floyd.
Yeah,
Errol Floyd also great. Love him.
Yeah, but no, it doesn't have that kind of like use of the set. Instead, there's a couple parts where they're up on the round table and then they're down.
But because it's
it's on this very square area, and it's also pretty much timed very, very statically.
Yeah.
So their beats, you can almost just follow along, like,
and
tuck,
I think
tuck, tuck, tuck,
that
bang.
Yeah,
that's one of the big problems with
1, 2, 3, bam. Yeah,
and
that's one
like,
of the,
wow.
and you can really feel that because there's no musical score, so all you're hearing is the clang. And there are also these big broadswords that are also clearly not the correct weight they should be because they're swinging them around. Like I love that Wagner and Mason and/or their stunt doubles in places or whatever are at times remembering to play that the swords are supposed to be heavy, but then in other times not at all.
Right.
And so it just it's one of the most boring sword fights I've seen in a movie because there's clang.
One sword can split the chair down the middle. The other sword, which is supposed to be the singing sword, barely dents the chair. And then like the shields take a lot of denting.
Man, those garbage can lids get messed
up, and they sound like it too. It's that hollow, tinny. It doesn't feel like whang, bang, and like it doesn't have weight to it.
Brendan, to your point about how long the duel takes, I would say that it's probably timed a little shorter than the I keep talking about the Prisoner of Zenda remake, but
which is way better than this. Watch that instead.
And certainly the Scaramouche sword fight at the end of the movie.
No. I have no problem with a long sword fight, but you have to have dynamics to it.
But there's no dynamics here. You're not cutting in and seeing them like engage in such a way.
And also, there's no acrobatics. This is literally
swing, this is not Tyrone Power, Errol Flynn, Bowser Rat. None of those guys are anywhere near this.
They rested early that night. Somewhere someone is just clanging.
And I kept thinking, because they do such a thing of, well, let's not have the duel here, and Jim like, no, this is my right. I want the duel here now. And so Arthur goes, all right, everybody clear out. It would have been more impressive to me if they had staged him saying, no, I want it here, I want it now, and him leaping up onto the table and just fighting like You know,
it's so and it does that.
But what I was saying
Count
is,
of Monte Cristo TV movie with Tony Curtis.
yes, I know.
He leaps on the table.
I
And
know.
That's because that's how a pro does it.
Screaming because it's chaos.
But
that's how a pro does it.
My question that I've been trying to work in for 14 minutes
Yes.
is this. What was the thinking behind not having this scored? Because all the weaknesses we're talking about wouldn't have been fixed, but the heart rate would have gone up a little bit if there was something like
especially because so much of the other parts of the movie is overscored, in my opinion. Like a lot of movies of this era, it just is always blaring at all moments. And I think that's another thing. It's just like, why is that? Suddenly they're just like, it's good enough. I don't know.
Because this is all you need is this exciting
clang. It does that thing because I love one of my favorite things that can happen in a film is a sword fight. I live for movie sword fights.
Right.
But this is guilty of. There's many problems with it, but it's also guilty of that. Yes, that over choreographed thing that I hate in sword fights, where it never feels like anyone's actually trying to kill anyone in the sword fight. It feels like they are swinging to hit their swords together, which drives me up the wall. I love the idea because sword fight is like, I'm trying to cut the other guy and he's blocking. It's not kerclang, 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 This is the kind of stuff we did in my like high school drama department. Had sword fights like this.
When Brendan was talking about it, you could see the beats of it. It's like, well, that's classic like early stage combat choreography where you can see the 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, it's like they filmed a rehearsal, like the first rehearsal.
And they also have like the couple of moments where they get past each other's guard because there is like oh my god, Brack just got an arm slash, and you're like, wow.
Yeah.
Now we're back to clang, 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 clang.
Yeah. And then also James Mason basically kills himself right at the end of this thing because the way that Valiant
exactly. God, thank you, John. That's all I was thinking the whole time. Was when Nathan dies. He literally throws himself on Wagner's sword.
It's not a thing. It's not a thing where he like gets a shot at it. Mason does a totally unnecessary dive at him, and Wagner's already got his sword up at him. It's suicide.
Weirdly, I think that was probably studio. Weirdly, I think that was them watching the rating of it because even in the comic strips, Prince Valiant stabbed people. You know, I mean, he tried
He's
to
a
keep
stabby
the
fella.
But for this, they're like, this will be a Saturday matinee that families will go to. So Valiant, even though he's defending himself and he's doing this, he can't actually do a sword thrust, kill the bad guy. The bad guy has to screw up and, essentially throw himself on a sword.
Yeah,
which is dumb.
It's incredibly dumb.
One might argue the dumbest.
It's pretty dumb, and it really irked me when it happened. I just thought, like, what in the hell is that?
Yeah.
Wait, John, you saying you were irked?
I was a little irked. I was either bored or irked by this movie a lot. There's really not a whole lot to get excited about.
Have you seen a movie in any recent time period that uses as much boiling oil as this?
That is true. They go nuts with the boiling oil in this thing.
No, they go nuts with the boiling oil, but that's still only, I'd say, 70% as nuts as they go with horned helmets.
Oh,
even in the comic strip do the Vikings look this ridiculous.
Am so glad you mentioned that because that was something I did.
It felt to me like they asked the creator of Asterix and whatever to come in and sub in some costume design.
The director's like, what I'm going for is kind of a Asterix meets Hagar the Horrible. Can you give me that? Because I mean the comic strip is very detailed, and some of the Vikings in the comic strip do have horned helmets, but he's trying to be somewhat realistic. That scene where they're all like doing their the Vikings are like, we're going to go to join Val and take over. And it's just like a pub or whatever it is, and it's a fucking horn fest. It's ridiculous.
all I can
Hornfest.
think is, I had the
Hornfest
thought, I go,
1954.
I go,
still have the T-shirt.
did they make a movie that had a bunch of horn helmets? They go, we still got to pay these off. Like, these are just lying
I
around.
think, yeah.
More,
Yeah,
And then, of course, I'm thinking of Mel Brooks' History of the World Part
Yeah,
1.
yeah.
where They take their helmets off and the horns are just on their heads.
I
I was kind of like, oh, do that, please.
It is just like or it's just the sort of thing of like Vikings horn helmets. There you go. There's your costume design, folks.
Yeah, unless you're one of the two that gets wings on your helmet.
Well, yeah. Then,
Everyone else-
those were the expensive ones. Everybody else gets a horn helmet. You get a horn helmet.
Dio.
And you get a horn helmet.
Have you gotten yet? No, it's right with it. That's the line for the horn helmet.
Yeah, there you go. Horn helmets.
Horn helmets only. This line.
Yeah, excuse me.
Sir, I don't think the horns on my helmet are big enough. What do you want? You'll be the short horn guy. All right,
But I think
that's your name.
I can't.
You got your horns from a goat.
It's
These
both.
others, they got them from oxen.
It's
Okay.
both.
By the way, when you die in the movie, we're going to use part of the Wilhelm scream, not the full one.
Just
Because
Yeah,
your
these
horns aren't as
Vikings,
big.
these Vikings being tossed off the sides of the castle. Every
yeah,
single
yeah,
one
yeah.
of them is kind of Wilhelm scream, but it's like they chopped it into little chunks.
yeah.
Yeah.
That was almost the full.
It was like Yahoo.
It's damn close to that.
Shouldn't there be more to that? Nope.
No.
Not for him. Have you seen the size of the horns on his
Not for
helmet?
that guy.
No, that's
all
like,
he gets.
as checked out as everyone on the production staff of this thing was. Post-production seems to be even quicker to want to get this thing over with.
Oh,
Good
yeah.
Lord,
Yeah,
get
yeah,
this thing out of here, man.
It
Just,
was, oh my god. I just think that at the end of the day, maybe the film did the best that you could do with a comic strip that will devote 3 Sundays in a row to the proper use of wooden spoons.
yeah. I will, like I said at the top, it's like this is fairly accurate representation.
yeah.
And that has always been the problem of Prince Valiant. I'm glad
Right.
it's still around because historically important.
Yeah.
Maybe it's time to wrap it up, guys. But I'm just saying.
I mean, at this
is
point,
that
for
it's-
who, though, right? Like, I mean, I'm just saying, like,
Exactly.
that's sort of the thing I get with it, where it's like, even if you wrapped it up, if they made a big deal of the finale of Prince Valiant,
And it's quite possible that other people
Just
have
keep it
taken
running
it
forever.
in directions that would probably be thrilling, but I'm not going to try and read the whole
I
thing
just
up to
couldn't-
the present day.
when I went to the
Though I might have to drop in because I have to check out the run. Apparently, Wally Wood was one of the.
oh yeah,
Oh wow.
Yeah,
he
Wally
did
Wood.
some,
Yeah.
and Gray Morrow did a lot of them, and I'm like, oh, I like both those
But
guys. I might have to.
Gray
check
I
out what
couldn't
they
believe it. I went to the Prince Valiant website and it's like, there it is, February whatever 2024's installment. I just went, that's nuts.
did. It is.
That is
Yeah, it makes
crazy.
me
It's still going.
crazy.
Did Alex Toth do any?
He never did.
That
No,
that's
but
interesting because
again-
the style is obviously very Alex Toth.
All no, it's actually not. Toth was a master of flat blacks, a lot of like sort of like
Yeah.
shadowy stuff,
Yeah.
and Hal Foster's style, classic illustration, everything incredibly delineated.
Yeah.
But Toth, we only need his Zorro. That is still
Well,
the
yeah,
best Zorro you'll ever see.
The Zorro,
Yeah.
the Zorro
Live
stuff.
action included, the best Zorro ever is.
It's
Alex
pretty
Toth.
great.
Oh.
He also was the main character designer on
on
Quest.
Super Friends. Oh, and Johnny
Johnny
Quest.
Quest.
He was also the character designer on Super Friends.
Yeah,
so
I know.
he adapted.
You know what's crazy though is
Space
like
Ghost.
so.
He designed Space Ghost.
Yeah.
Oh man, do you see Space Ghost is getting a new comic at Dynamite?
Yeah, I saw that.
I'm
and
very
it's gonna
excited.
Be grim and gritty.
Very excited.
I'm down for it.
Yeah.
Are we going to find out what happened to the assistants?
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, I mean, so like, okay, so like, I just
basically the first cover is him holding onto 2 dead bodies and going, oh,
here's the thing that's crazy about. I'm looking at current Prince Valiant. I'm looking at the this week's strip on the website, and it's so crazy because it's done digitally now, obviously, but it's digital trying to look. It's so crazy, and like the lettering is digital, but it's trying to look like the older. It's very crazy to see people using so much modern technology to look like hand-drawn stuff of the past. It's very it's very interesting to me. And of course, as we talk about like what is happening here, Nothing. Like Prince Valiant is talking to some people and going, "We're gonna go over there," and that's like, "Join us next week."
Your point, yeah. The lettering is completely.
The lettering is what stands out to
font.
me the most. Yeah.
Oh, so John, are you saying that they concluded the story arc where they learned how to fold a napkin?
It seems like that is what they've done here.
It
Yeah.
looks like they are hunting, is what it looks like.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I think this is Tom Yates is the current artist, and that's another great choice. That guy's amazing.
The
So
art looks great.
good.
I mean, yeah, it looks really good. Also, you talk about it looks like he's got some goblin people in here, so it looks like some of the some of the fantasy stuff is still around. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
You folks can go to comicskingdom.com and read.
I will probably, if they continue, speaking of action figures, if NECA comes out with their Prince Valiant to keep going with the King features, I'll probably get that.
They might.
I like Prince Valiant.
Is
I'm
it
not
going to
a
look like
huge fan.
Bob Wagner? Is it going to look like RJ?
Yeah. A bold
And sadly,
Brennan,
as
is
we
he going
know,
to resemble RJ?
and as we know, Prince Valiant's first girlfriend died from drowning.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. We got in a fight, and last I checked, she kind of maybe took off sometime during the night, I think. And
The Aaliyah action figure looks a lot like Natalie Wood.
No,
come on.
No.
And Alita looks a lot like Jill St. John.
You know, it's nothing's ever been proven, of course. I know it's still technically an open investigation,
It
but
was a rough night for everyone. I suffered quite a bit.
I'm just
It
saying.
wasn't me. It was Sir Brack.
Yeah.
Sir Brack
It was
on
The
the
Black
board.
Knight. Oh yeah, okay. We did.
Brack as played by Christopher Walken.
Yeah.
which
Oh,
is
actually,
not good.
I would actually kind of love to see that. But the Sir Brack
It's my
reveal.
right as a knight to declare my own duel in time.
Oh God, that would be
God.
awesome.
I don't understand why
Let's
King
wrap up, 'cause
Papa
I'm hungry
will not
now.
allow me
the
privilege.
the thing I was saying, yeah,
I'm
the
a
Sir
member of
the Sir
round
Brack
table.
the Sir Brack
You can't
reveal.
stop him, John. You
No.
can't stop him. He's
The
not
Sir
finished.
the
He's
Sir
gonna
Brack
keep going.
reveal, as we've talked about, is very fun because it's
Yeah.
just one of those things where it's like, even as the credits are starting, you're like, well, James Mason's going to be crooked.
Yeah,
in this,
Mason's
right?
going to be the Black Knight. Wait, there's a Black Knight that people don't know who he is? That's probably Mason.
Well, because it's also just like, it's one of those things, too, where I just go like, why would James Mason be in this movie unless he's going to be the villain? Right? Like, that's the James Mason
right.
role in
Yeah,
a Prince
that's true.
Valiant movie is to be the bad guy. Right? Otherwise, why have
Pretty
you...
much.
Yeah, I always keep bringing up Prisoner of Zenda, but my favorite thing
The
about
greatest
Prisoner of
movie ever
Zenda
made,
is
apparently.
is that Mason never, as Rupert, he never really talks about his motivation at all.
Yep.
He's just basically the Iago of it, and he's laughing
He does
the
bad
whole
stuff
time.
and walks off
He's
going,
having a great time sword fighting, and then when it looks like it's not going his way, he goes, "Well, I guess I'm leaving." You know? He just
Hey,
goes.
Robin, sometimes a bad guy is just a bad guy.
Sometimes
that's
a
what
bad
No
you're
other
guy...
reason than to be a bad guy.
That's what Don John told me in Much Ado About Nothing.
That's right.
Oh, you mean Keanu Reeves?
Hey,
Yeah.
I think if you're
My
going to
dear
give
friend.
Keanu a Shakespeare part, that is the perfect Keanu Shakespeare part. But all right,
Oh my God. So in conclusion about Prince Valiant,
Yes.
it is like the comic strip,
yes,
unfortunately.
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
the
for good
overwhelming
and bad is
problem
what I'm
here.
saying,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's why. Now I'm going to do something here that we do. One of the segments we do on the IP Squad.
Oh, I'm scared.
Which is called Highs and Lows. This is where I pull user reviews from IMDb, glowingly positive and violently negative reactions to the movie.
Okay.
What do you guys want to start with here? Do you want to hear a positive or a negative reaction to this movie?
I want to hear
I'm
positive
actually interested to hear what the positive.
Okay, here
Yeah.
we go. How about this? Here we go. This is from IMDb user Coltrus35. The review is titled "Rousing Epic Adventure." Wagner had mentioned that he was miscast in his role as Hal Foster's Prince Valiant, but I think he does a brilliant job, convincingly playing the Viking Prince, and he is equally adept in the athletic parts as he spends a lot of time climbing up and down ramparts and trees and leaping over tables and walls. I'll agree with them on that. That's probably what Wagner's the best at, is just leaping about in this movie. He does do a lot of that.
There's a lot of
sure.
leaping.
Yeah. Um,
Totally.
Prince
Yeah,
Valiant enters the
totally.
court of King Arthur in England and becomes, with some tutelage from Sir Gawain, a knight of the Round Table, determined to you understand that
He
we've
does
watched it.
he does a whole.
All right, so let's skip to an absolutely rousing comic book style mix of Arthurian legend with Viking lore, with great set pieces, locations, castles, and most importantly, stirring action sequences. Standout being Valiant's first confrontation with the villainous Black Knight, the lengthy sequence of the Viking hideout, and the high-energy, clanking sword fight between Valiant and the Black Knight. It's really well staged. You can really feel the thunder of the swords as they clash.
Wow.
Stirring stuff.
So Culturous 35.
Culturous
has
35.
never seen The Adventures of Robin Hood, I take it.
Also,
Yeah, that movie would blow
Cultures-
this guy's mind if he saw it.
Well, what's interesting is Cultures apparently is a time displaced studio hat. He's like sitting there going like, "This is the job." Gotta
Well,
bulk it up."
get ready, because if you disagreed with that,
the Blurb-O-Matic guy in Spy Magazine.
yeah, there you go.
Walter-
How about this? If you think the thing about how about
Yeah.
this? How about this comment? And the plot is smooth, moves briskly, and is engaging. Nope. It's really clunky as a narrative, like
no.
let's see. Janet Leigh is great as Valiant's Lady Love. Hayden is
The
comical.
ghost of Dudley Nichols would like to protest.
Hayden is
I did other
comical.
stuff.
Hayden is
Better
comical as
stuff.
Sir Gawain, and James Mason, he with the velvety voice like finely cut glass, makes a fantastic
hell?
villain and gives an authentic feel, at least with the accent amongst the American players. I have watched this film many times in my teen years and always loved it, and I've seen it recently. My opinion is the same. Brilliant film that makes you feel good afterwards. 10
John,
out of
this
10
is
stars.
all Culturous 35.
This is all Cultures 35. I only read one
Was
review
this
for each
like
one.
like a class where they you have to do at least 1,000 words?
It's the
This was a very, 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 very,
Yeah.
very, 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 very exciting movie.
Well, let's hear the reverse, which this is from.
Yeah.
Gotta love these usernames. Hot Toasty Rag.
Oh.
A name
Classic, I think we've got classic HTR coming up here.
another Hot Toasty Rag take. This is the negative review, which is titled "So Painful Beneath James Mason's Talent."
Oh.
I never thought I'd see the day when the best part of a movie would be Franz Waxman's musical score. That speaks very highly of his surprising music in Prince Valiant, and also very poorly of the rest of the movie. It is it was as if everyone in the film was a rapper, and that then when James Mason opened his mouth, an opera aria came out.
Wait, what?
It's as if.
As if, yeah. It's as if everyone in the film...
Everybody else is a
I don't
tone-deaf
care for
rapper.
which I don't totally care for the complete
No.
slagging off of the art
This is
form.
coming
Yeah.
from a rapper, Hot Toasty Rap.
Hot
right?
Toasty
So they
Rag!
know-
Hot Toasty Rag on the
why
mic!
not say
Oh,
that?
right.
I am
I'm sorry.
hungry.
I
Yeah.
I am ready
Toasty
for a hot
He
toasty
just
rap.
didn't belong in this movie. It was beneath
Yeah.
his talent. Everyone else acted like they were dubbed by foreign actors who didn't know how to construct proper English sentences and were forced to speak in monotone.
I don't agree with that.
This was so incredibly painful to sit through, and I thoroughly recommend that no one ever did it. Oh boy, here we go. Hot Toasty Rag, getting personal. My mom and I rented it together because she's crazy about James Mason, too. We didn't turn it off because whenever James Mason opened his mouth, we wanted to hear it. Instead, while everyone else was talking, we talked, too. We spent the entire running time of Prince Valiant pouring generous glasses of apricot brandy and writing out a cast list of the Harry Potter films if they were made in the 1960s, inspired by how amazing James Mason would have been as Professor Snape. Then, since Prince Valiant still had a half hour left, we made another cast list of Harry Potter was made in the 1940s. So my instructions, in case you're
But
ever...
not the 1950s
No.
when the movie was made.
Skipped right over that.
I skipped over the fifth. All right.
I want to this last paragraph from them I love because I want to posit what world this scenario would happen in. So my instructions, in case you're ever invited to a party where someone has rented Prince Valiant, you know how those another Prince Valiant party I get invited to.
You mean an apricot brandy party?
Well, they said if you're invited to this, here's hot toasty rags advice: bring a bottle or two of apricot brandy and a notepad. Pick a decade and plan out a cast list of an alternate Harry Potter film franchise. Only pausing.
Also, if you're gonna be watching Suits on TNT, you want to bring some apple brandy. You know what else? If you're gonna watch Painting with John on the Sundance Channel, the independent film, you're probably gonna want some apple brandy.
What? Why are they?
I gotta say.
Anytime a stevia commercial comes on, you might want to have yourself some apricot brandy.
John, I didn't realize Hot Toasty Rag was Little Edie of the two women who live in Grey Gardens. Like those two
My
old
mom and
ladies
I rented it
enjoying
together and
their
watched for
apricot
James
brandy.
Mason. And we had our apricot brandy.
Sometimes when you're watching birds out of the window, you might want to have a little apricot brandy. Well, just a little nip of that
Sometimes
brandy.
your eyeballs just move too fast.
Yeah.
Apricot brandy will help.
Right. that was
there
a
you go,
movie.
little apricot brandy.
Kinda.
But I love that the advice is like, but then just stop whatever you're doing and pay attention whenever James Mason says something, because he's James Mason.
Right.
Or
I'm so happy that characters out of Miss Marple's village got to see this movie and then write a comment about it.
Yeah, right before they're killed by someone with knitting
Right
needles.
before they're poisoned in the apricot brandy.
the apricot brandy. And a VHS copy of Prince Valiant was playing on that screen.
And I believe that.
Well, gentlemen, we have
watching.
kicked off this thing.
This is indeed, this is that. So we would, as always, I will ask, and of course, I think the answer to this is: do you, if we're building the canon of pulp and comic strip movies, do you include Prince Valiant in that? I can't in good conscience. Brendan, I see you're struggling because I think you're going to argue that while, all right, why don't you just go ahead and tell me what I think you're going to say?
Get out of my head!
Yeah, I think I'll definitively say no, because I can't endorse it as a film.
I won't say definitively one way or the other, simply because I haven't seen the only other Prince Valiant film, which I know we will watch.
From 97.
From 97. So if that one turns out to be a better representation, then I might say
He's got better hair in it, I'll say that.
Prince Valiant as a character historically deserves a film adaptation. This one, the only one I've seen so far, I would say if you guys want to see an adaptation of one of the great comic strips, this is I mean, I didn't like it as a movie, but I didn't hate it either.
No,
so
it
I
suffers.
will mildly say for now,
okay,
maybe 97 will be better. I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know. I kept thinking throughout that the only way to make it really like the comic strip would be if Jack Webb made it. And you know how Dragnet is like 50 to 70% narration.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and that would have been this, and so we wouldn't have had to listen to Robert Wagner or the American actors that much. We'd be listening to Michael Rennie.
Yeah.
Through most of the film, and maybe they
wasn't Rennie supposed to be Arthur? Is that the thing?
Yeah.
He was originally cast as Arthur, couldn't do it.
And Robert Newton was supposed to play the Victor McLaglen part.
And actually,
imagining Newton in one of those outfits.
I forgot I was going to mention this, but we obviously got sidetracked to something else. Surprise. Victor Mature was supposed to be Sir Gawain.
Right.
And when he turned down the project, they suspended his contract at the studio.
Oh, that's
because
great.
they were like,
wait, Mature was going to be
Gawain. Yeah.
That's probably a good call for Victor Mature. I think it was worth the suspension.
Yeah, I just love it. Just paints a picture
when
of
they told
that.
him what it was based on. He read one of the strips, and it happened to be one where it's like, "Look, we're on the trail of that large lizard," and he's like, "No,
yeah, I don't think so." It just paints a picture of a different time in Hollywood where you would turn a movie down, and they would go, then you're not going to work. Like,
Yeah. That's contracts.
You read the history of the studio system, and you see, what heroes people like Betty Davis and Olivia de Havilland were, and just saying, I'm not going to do this.
Plus, I've got enough power now. It's like, I want to go do that film over at MGM. They're like, okay.
When people bitch about today's studio system, and it's just like, you don't know how bad it could be. I'm not saying it's perfect today, of course, but good Lord.
I think Hollywood's still trying to figure out what
the only benefit of the old studio system was the fact that you got several chances.
Yes.
Nowadays, it's like you get your one movie. This is my debut, and if it tanks, we'll never hear from you.
I love what I heard. There's a great interview with Tom Hanks. I remember where he said, for every hit, it gets you 2 more swings. Yeah. And I think that's true. So if you make a movie that does well, that gives you 2 more chances. If one of those hits, 2 more chances. If you lose both of those, then you're done.
Man.
Yeah. And I think he's right about that.
And then you become a conservative Christian conspiracy theorist.
Yeah, that's our
you start making faith-based.
Yeah, we've posited that's the route to go. But next week,
so we're not covering movies adapted from the Bible and the pulp.
No, unfortunately not. My favorite pulp novel, The Holy Bible.
I'm being naughty.
Yeah.
Poison my apricot brandy.
He's a very naughty boy. All right. Next week on the show. Next week on the show, things are going to get decided. If this movie was too American for us, things are going to get very European next week as we meet a anti-hero / kind of villain of a sort in Danger Diabolique.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why are you guys doing French? He's Italian.
Right.
But it's also French somehow too. No, Danger Diabolique from the great Mario Bava.
I've seen it.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it's been on kind of on a list.
Oh, I'm that. Then you're in for a treat because it is.
I won't spoil, but it has a lot going for it. But we'll talk about how close it is to the source material.
This is the John Philip Law. Right?
John Philip Law, directed by Mario Bava. 1968. So we're jumping a full 14 years. Prince Valiant, believe it or not, did not kick off a wave of these. But
also, even though we are including this, and it makes sense to include it.
Yeah.
This is not of a piece. This is not them going like, let's cash in on the thing.
No.
Mario Bava is like, well, maybe the rest of the world will be interested in this comic that no one outside of Italy or France has read.
Yeah,
he took a chance.
We're in the beginnings here. It's not in tracking the IP of this. Yes, we're not yet at the place where like this has become a thing. It's just sort of individuals at this point picking this and this and this. So,
but you could make the argument that it was the time of James Bond and
very much so.
Oh no,
Modesty Blaze and people were trying.
And I will
much like now where people are like buying the rights to comic book companies in order to be able to make those movies. It's the same
good point, but John. That does bring up, why isn't Modesty Blaze on this list?
Oh, well, because once again, it's not meant to be exhaustive.
There's only 2 movies to deal with. There's Her Name is Modesty or whatever that Quentin Tarantino produced.
Yeah.
And then there's the 60s Modesty Blaze.
When did that come out?
We should probably include it.
And Brendan, there is like a TV movie pilot that was
66. 1966.
I think we should include it. Sorry to throw that in at the. I'm
that's
looking forward to Danger Diabolique, but
but see, that's gonna throw
John,
off
I just want to say for my brother that when he does this as a squad member, he is acting on his own.
He's rogue. He's going rogue. He's the Ethan Hunt.
Under the bus for this.
Brendan's the Ethan Hunt of the IP squad. He's always going rogue.
I am going rogue. I've gone Ghost Protocol.
I actually no. That's on me. I have to activate Ghost Protocol to stop this.
Okay.
Yeah, to stop your Rogue Nation.
Like Brendan's going Rogue Nation is what's happening.
Modesty Blaze, I think, as a
Brendan,
comic,
you already got Brenda. You already got Brenda Starr added to the list. So let's
I did.
quit while you're ahead. I did not. I. That is my oversight, and I'm sorry to all you Modesty Blaze fans out there, but I don't think we're going to include it.
Great.
All right.
Simply because we already have
the movie's not good.
Yeah.
But,
also, it's a full 2 hours long. I'm looking at it here. Get at it.
John.
John, it's not. Brendan's right. It's not good, but they're like some of the stuff. Interesting.
I would argue that the source material is more.
Yeah. If you had gotten that to me before I put this list together, I might have
understood. Okay, you guys,
we're already on to Danger.
Sausage gets made.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
Of sausage, I'm hungry.
Yeah,
so next
so
week,
surprised
Danger
there.
Diabolique.
Danger Diabolique with if you're a fan of our Vincent Price series over on the Patreon, which you should check out. Once again, that's patreon.podbean.com/punchup. Make sure you head over there and subscribe. Our old pal Terry Thomas might make an appearance in Danger Diabolique.
Delightful. But we can't tell anymore because it's all hush hush and whoosh whoosh.
Oh, indeed. All right, so that will be next week on the show. Thank you for listening to the IP Squad. But until next week, the case file is closed.